difficult thing. Mary, I have a question for you. And mainly because this was what I am. How can I be an effective long-distance caregiver? Who in here are long-distance caregivers? Okay, all right. We have our own little sorority fraternity here, don't we? I want to support my brother, who is my mom's primary caregiver, and I want to help my mom, but they live across the country. So how can I be effective as a long-distance caregiver? I would say lucky to have a brother that's there is one step.
You know, I don't have much background in this other than all of my brothers and sisters live in Spokane, so the caregiving for my father was my responsibility. What would have been helpful, I think, is if perhaps they would have contacted me to see if there's anything they could be doing. Maybe they could be on the internet researching. They can be finding ways long distance to do the things that you don't have time to do. But it's a hard question to get answered. I agree, the son being there. Sometimes having more involved in the caregiving can be difficult as well because you have different opinions on how things should be done. Men and women, and I'm not saying this as a gender bias, but I had an oncologist nurse explain that our nature of men is to fix things and women are more to nurture. So how are you going to resolve a problem when your approaches may not be exactly the same? Whether you're in the same town or long distance, I think those issues become something of discussion. Is the brother controlling everything? Are you feeling a part of it? Are they leaving you out of it? Are you feeling guilty because, gosh, he's there, I'm not? Is your imagination making your parent worse than they are? There's a lot of issues that are more not in person, but your own handling of this situation. And I do think a visit once in a while, FMLA is available for people to take continuous or intermittent leave. That's the approach I take, is take what time you can. Maybe technology, Skyping, maybe your mom being on a telecommuting or some kind of a display that you can communicate to her, and just supporting your brother, and just like we're doing here, saying, you're doing great. I appreciate what you're doing and know that I can't be there in person. You know, people don't know where their parents are going to be when they're going to need care, as well as we don't know where we're going to be when the care is needed. So I think try and find ways to work together the best you can, but also understand that there are going to be limits with that distance between you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
One thing to that?
You certainly can. Jump right in there.
Our information and assistance department at the Area Agency on Aging gets calls from family members from across the country all the time, and they will help by locating the local Area Agency on Aging in that area or different resources like that. When they call us, we actually have are branching into more of a private pay case management. So if somebody wants and has the finances to have somebody checking on their loved one, being there to do some things that they can't be there for, that's available. But we also have they would have the resources we have for respite care and for meals, home delivered meals and those things. And so calling our office or Googling it, or getting online and looking for local agencies and starting with the Area Agency on Aging there.
Perfect. That's a great piece of advice. We forget that that's a national area of aging, right? Everywhere. So that's wonderful. Angela, yes, you may. Absolutely. What she's talking about, and actually it's one of the sets in our Powerful Tools for Caregivers is actually a conversation on this, and it's really about the family getting together, be it by telephone or whatever the case may be, or if you can get together as a group, and what each is able to do. And to be, especially if you're long distance, nowadays with so much technical abilities, there's a lot we can do from a long distance to relieve a little bit of the support of the person who is there locally, and that's what she was talking about. If we had really all said, each of us, what we could do, and let the person who is local, being the caregiver, the local caregiver, that here's what I'm going to do, here's what I'll do. In my case, I'm the female. I have two brothers, and my brothers declared that it was a female's job to be the caregiver. How do you think that worked? That's another story for another day. So, yes. And what she was talking about, for those of you that may not have heard, is that Olive family was like over 1,000 miles away from the parents. So there was community. They lived in a 55 years and older community, which is quite wonderful because they really are geared and developed into different processes and programs with neighbors taking care of it. But we're going to move on to another. The thing with every one of these questions, we could spend all day on each question. I mean, they're just so powerful. So thank you very much for sharing the information with us. But as you can see with that one, and I think just from talking with Mary too, speak your mind, say what you can do. If you heard Mary's language, she said she wished that they had come to her and said what they could do. And I'm thinking, Mary, if the new Mary would go, I'm calling them and telling them what they're gonna do. And that's what needs to happen, is that you need to speak your mind. So Angela, I'm going to move on to a question with you. And we've been talking about a lot of agencies here. And in cases like with yourself, I'm sure, is what are effective ways to manage multiple agencies in providing care? How can I best manage the many different agencies and their staff who may come to my home to help with all the things that I need with my care recipient?
This is wonderful. Oh, whoops. Am I on?
You're on.
Okay, good. I actually have quite a bit of experience with having multiple agencies in and out of my home over the years. And so one of the things that right off the bat, I'll give you some anecdotal personal stuff, but first, I would strongly suggest that the National Center for Medical Home Implementation has a website that is medicalhomeinfo.org, and within that site is resources for creating care notebooks. There are 20 different templates and examples on that website, and then there's also how to build your own care notebook. So getting organized is something that we teach parents right off the bat.
Would you repeat those? Everyone is taking notes on this. I
Yep.
just watched all the pens go straight up. So would you repeat those addresses, please?
Yeah, it's medicalhomeinfo.org, and it's the National Center for Medical Home Implementation. For those who don't know what a medical home is, it's the fancy, well, it's the less than fancy name for comprehensive coordinated care. But those care notebooks are fantastic. And like I said, there are 20 different examples and templates. And then there's also how to build your own care notebook based on your own needs. And I think that that's a beautiful way to just get yourself organized right off the bat. In my case, because we have therapies, personal care services, the staff that comes and works in my home with my daughter, my oldest daughter, in addition to nurse reviewers and supervisors and site visits and all of these folks that come in our home at times, and then balancing our own work schedules and the other kids as well, it can be challenging, especially there is a large turnover in staff. If we get somebody who works with my daughter for 2 or 3 years, that's amazing. I will say that pretty much all of the people that have worked with my daughter over the years remain in our lives one way or another, thanks to Facebook. I have developed a plan when in my home that number one, I interview. Anybody who works in our house needs to mesh with my whole family. It's not just working with my one daughter. They really need to understand, again, the circus that exists in our house, so that they have to be a part of that. They become part of your family, truly. I mean, they're in the most intimate of situations in your home. And then I make sure that there's always backup, 2 or 3 backup providers that have also been trained and have interviewed and know our world and know our family. I cannot stand being called when I'm at work and getting ready to go to another meeting, or I'm out of town, which is even worse, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and being told that there's nobody that's going to make it to be there. So we make sure there's always backup, but getting organized is probably key.
Okay, thank you very much. Great. Stephanie, when we were talking about even long-distance caregiving and brothers and sisters and all that sort of stuff, and that just kind of led to a question I see here that I think would be a good one for you. And it's, what are some of the tips and tools for navigating the family dynamics? Anyone know what that means? The family dynamics of caring for an aging parent. Tips, tools, navigation, tell us.
How many of you have perfect families? Raise your hands. I do. Oh, we have a few. You, they're at the Smithsonian? Family dynamics. We all have them. We all have them. And family dynamics can make caregiving even more challenging. It can also make them more enriching. And what I have learned over the years is that every family member has a unique relationship with the person that's being cared for. And every family member has their own perspective about what's needed and what's not. And every family member has their own ideas about what they can or cannot do or will not do. And you can't control your family members. As much as you'd like to, you can't. And I think that's the key, is having that perspective and being very clear about what your expectations are of your family members, and are they realistic? Because if you expect a family member is going to pitch in and help, and they don't have any expectation that they're going to pitch in and help, you're already starting out at a bad place. We've heard several times here about family meetings. And I think family meetings, whether they're by phone or whether they're in person, are a critical place to start. And they may not actually work out the way you want them to, but it at least provides you the opportunity for things to talk about how everyone could be involved and how it would help if everyone was involved, or how it may not help if everyone is involved. But at least to talk about what needs to be done and how do we communicate with one another. Family meetings don't always go well, and particularly even after the first one. But what it says to everyone is that they matter. It says to every family member that you matter in this equation, and I, as the primary caregiver or starting out, need your help. For some families, you need some outside help. And there actually are professionals who will help facilitate and mediate family meetings. And we have information, there are some resources here that do just that. Respecting each other's viewpoints is probably really key to remember.